Hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, one plant that I really missed last year because I didn't have the seeds to grow it was the Portrage Kale. Now, I grew it the year before and I've saved a load of my own seed. Portrage Kale is really nice. It's the large kale that grows around 4 to 5 foot high, can get up to 6 foot high, and then you get some really nice. It's almost like a tall cabbage, but the leaves are really good for you. Tastes really nice, very high in iron, very good for you to eat. And the way to grow them is to get a tray like that with some compost in. Now these are the seeds that are saved here. I'll just show you. Those are the seeds in there. So obviously I've saved thousands of seeds, and they're like. No, these seeds will save for years. So these seeds will be good for at least 5 years. So there you go, they're the seeds, a bit like mustard seeds. And all I'm going to do is sort of sprinkle these on. I'm not going to be too fussy about this. Obviously if you've got a bit more time you can sort of sprinkle them on or sort of place them out a bit better. I'll be pricking these out in exactly the same way with most of the brassicas. So I'll be pricking these out and planting them up into these pots in a few weeks' time. And I need probably about 20 or 30 plants of this, so there's more than enough there. Obviously they're always nice to give away to friends as well, so just seal that back up. Right, all you need to do is put a little teeny bit of compost over the top of them. Now brassicas do germinate at quite low temperatures, so I don't really need to be worried too much about putting a piece of glass over these. There's no harm to be done by doing that, but these should germinate in reasonably low temperatures. So I've literally just put a very fine bit of compost over the top of the seeds like that. Sprinkle it over, make sure they're all covered, all the seeds are covered. Now the one thing you can say about brassicas, they like the ground to be firm, so don't be shy when you push the compost down like this. They do like the ground to be firm. That's the best conditions for them to grow. Right, obviously label it up again, and these will be very quick to germinate. These will be up in probably about a week's time. Stick a label so you know what they are, and then I'll show you those in a week or so's time. As soon as they start to germinate, as I say, you wait till they get to about 2 or 3 inches high, and then you sort of prick them out by just pulling the compost apart. And then you can sort of dip them into a little pot like that, grow them on into here till they're about sort of 6 to 9 inches high, and then you can plant them out into the garden. Very robust plant, and these are great for you know, your winter veg. These will grow all the way through the winter, and you can be pulling the leaves off during the winter. Obviously you don't need to eat the whole plant, you can just pull a few leaves off, chop them up. They're really nice tasty leaves. And if you've got chickens like me as well, the chickens love kale, so you can't go wrong with these. This is an all-round good vegetable to grow. Very cheap, very easy to grow, and if you bought them in the shop, you know, you'd be saving yourself a fortune. So that's kale for you. I'll show you that again in a couple of weeks' time, as soon as they start to germinate. Okay then, so moving on to the herbs. So what I've done here is I've got a tray with these separators in. I'll put a bit of compost in each one. Now what I'm going to be growing are 2 herbs here. One is coriander, which is exactly the same family as the Celeriac that I was growing as well. So this is from the Peripherai family, and then also basil as well, sweet basil. Now, I always find with these is you're best off growing them in cells because the plants are so small. They're sort of difficult to sort of separate later. Now with basil you tend to get quite a lot of seeds. So I'm just going to open this up. Now obviously basil's really good for any Italian food really. So if you like your Italian food, the fresh basil is the herb to get. I don't know if you can see, but they're the seeds from basil. So all I'm going to do is basically put an indentation in the middle, so the seeds will fall to the middle of the what's there. I'm just going to put sort of 3 or 4 seeds in each one, like that. Now basil's really easy to grow. Most herbs are easy to grow, but basil is particularly easy to grow. And it's really nice if you want to make pasta dishes or anything that's Italian really, so pastas and obviously pizzas as well. It's nice on pizzas. So all you want to do is just sprinkle a little bit of compost over the top of those, like that. Not too much, you just want a little. What I suggest you do is just tamp it down slightly with your fingers like that. Right, and that's the basil in. So what you want to do is obviously water them gently with a fine rose. Put a piece of glass over just to start them off, and then they'll start to come through in the next couple of weeks. Now so just label them up. So basil. Right, so just get that out of the way. In exactly the same way, I'm going to do coriander. Now, coriander is obviously really good for sort of Indian food. So always really nice on if you cook any curries or anything like that, to put some fresh coriander on just before you serve it is always nice. Now these seeds are reasonably big. You actually get these in the spice rack. You can get the sort of pale brown large seeds. There you go. So the seeds look like that. So they're easy to handle. And what I suggest you do is just put your finger again in each one of the cells to make an indentation, because you want the seeds to fall into the middle. Now you probably get away with putting 1 seed in each one, but I'm going to put 2 in each one. Now coriander grows really well. It's almost like a weed, to be honest with you, but it's really nice. Even if you've not got a garden, you can grow coriander in your just put a few seeds in a pot, then you can grow it in your kitchen window, and then you've got some fresh coriander there that you can pull out when you're growing, when you're cooking any Indian dishes. I'm just going to put, as I say, two seeds in each one, but each seed, I can almost guarantee both seeds will germinate. You don't want to overcrowd them too much. I wouldn't put any more than 2 seeds in for sure. Right, so as soon as you've got your sort of 2 seeds in each one, you just want to put about 1/2 centimetre of compost over the top of those. I've got some spare seeds. Now these seeds will keep really well, so I'll be able to use them next year. So all you need to do to save the seed, obviously just seal that back over and keep them in a relatively cool place, and then you'll be able to grow them again next year. But obviously I got those from Wilko's. They were only £1, so you know, you can't go wrong really. And I think the basil was even cheaper than this. The basil was £1 as well. As I say, just put the corners of the seed packet over a couple of times like that, just to seal the air, and then put them back in your seed packet so you know what they are. And you'll be able to grow some more next year, so you know, even better saving. Right, so as I say, all you want to do is just put a little bit of compost over the top of them seeds. Obviously these seeds are a bit bigger than the basil seeds, so obviously they go slightly deeper. Like that. As you can see from the way I'm doing it, it's just really quick to do it. Like that. Now if you bought those from a garden centre, you'd probably you probably pay a small fortune for a sort of plug of that to put in the garden, so you know you've saved yourself a fortune by growing it yourself. Obviously all you need to do now is to label them up. Coriander. Now I'll give them a good watering. Now because the shells on the coriander seed are quite sort of tough, so you need to give these a really good soak with water, and then I'll put a piece of glass over just to start them off. But these should germinate without that, to be honest with you. But unlike the smaller seed of the basil, you want to give these a really good soaking to get the shell of the seed softened so that it can germinate. So that's the coriander and the basil. Then I'll show you these in a couple of weeks as soon as they've started to grow. Okay, so next on the agenda is Celeriac. So Celeriac's in the Melliferae family, and basically that means that the flower sort of makes like an umbrella sort of shape, if you like. So that's where the sort of Umbelliferae name comes from, and that's basically a whole group of plants. In there is sort of obviously Celeriac, celery, also coriander's in there. So that, you know, there is quite a few different plants that we eat that are in there, and obviously there's quite a few plants that we don't eat as well in the same family of plants. But these are sort of quite easy to grow, but what you want to do is start them off reasonably early. So again, all I'm doing is this is sketching the seed onto the tray. So this is a half tray. You don't need too many of these. I only really put one row of these in, to be honest with you. And this is quite a nice variety. This is from the, I know you can't see the top of the seed packet, but this is from the Irwin's Groshaw varieties, and this is basically a smooth variety. The thing is with Celeriac is it can be a little bit gnarly. You know, you get the sort of edges of it are quite, you know, sort of, you know, you get bits of dirt stuck in them and stuff. This is quite a smooth variety, so it's quite nice. But celery and celeriac are grown exactly the same way. Also, obviously, coriander's from the same plant. I'll be growing some of that this year as well, so that'll be going in before too much longer. But the seeds are a little light brown, almost like grass seeds, really. I'll just quickly show you what it looks like. So it's like quite pretty little seeds. They're sort of like a sort of light brown, like a sort of darker brown line going through them. Now, these are notoriously difficult to sow. So all I can suggest you do is just sprinkle them on as best you can. As I say, they're not, they are so fine. They're not quite as bad as lobelia, but you know, they are quite a fine seed now. Now these seeds are going to be no good next year, so I'm just going to put in what I've got. Put the rest of them in. Right, so now what you want to do now is basically put the finest amount of compost over the top. You could get away with putting vermiculite or something like that over. But what you want to do is just get yourself a handful of compost. Make sure that there's no sort of lumps or bumps or any sort of hard bits in there or stringy bits. Get rid of them. And what you want to do is just very gently sprinkle on. Unlike the broccoli, I'm not going to tap this down too hard. And obviously you need to be careful the first time you water it. Again, with any plant really, you can tell how deep to put the seeds by how large the seeds are. Larger seeds tend to go deeper in the soil, so things like beans, sunflowers, things like that have got large seeds, you put them down a couple of inches. Seeds that are kind of this big, you know, you only want them just at the top of the surface of the soil really. You don't you know, you don't need to bury them too far. Right, just a very gentle tamping down like that. Now I'll give those a bit of water. These are one that you need to keep a little bit warm. So these should germinate within about sort of, most certainly within 2 weeks you'd expect to see some sort of activity there. Hopefully within a week. If you don't start to see any this time of year, what I would suggest you do is keep them in your greenhouse for a week. If you don't start to see anything germinating, take them into the house where it's a little bit warmer, let them have a bit of warmth in there to start them off, and then you can bring them back into the greenhouse to hold off a bit later on. But again, a very small amount of water on them, put a piece of glass over in the greenhouse this time of year, just to give them a sort of warmer start, and they will start to show in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so now on to sunflowers. Now these are some seeds that I saved from last year. So the first one that I'm going to grow are these small ones. Now these grow about, these are the multi-headed ones that are around, grow about 4 foot high, and then they have multiple small sort of flowers on. And then there's also the large sunflower. So I'm going to put some of these large ones in because they're the ones that I was planning on putting in today. Now sunflower seeds, most people know what sunflower seeds look like. And so I'm just going to rip a sort of small hole in the side here so you can see what they look like. I'm going to go over there. Right, so sunflower seeds kind of look like that. And these are obviously some that I saved from last year. So all you do is really easily just save the flower head, and then what you can do is sort of dry it out until the seeds become loose, and then you can just very quickly get them out. And for every flower that you save, you literally get thousands of seeds, so you only really need one sort of flower head. So just to explain what I'm doing now, I filled these pots full of compost. Now these are the square pots. I find these are much easier because they stack together a lot easier. They're about kind of that big, so they're kind of 4 or 5 inches deep and about 3.5 inches in, sort of square to the sides. And what I'm doing is getting each seed so that the pointed end is facing. So if you look at the seeds, you get like a pointed end and you get like a flat end. What I tend to do is put the pointed end in. So hold the seed with the pointed end like that, and then just push it into the compost. I typically put 2 in each one, and then what I'll do is the strongest one to grow, I'll keep that, and the other one I'll cut off. Don't pull it out because you can disturb the roots of the other one. But what you can do is just basically cut it off with a pair of secateurs or a small pair of scissors, and then obviously leave the stronger one on to grow, and then that'll give you the strongest plants. So all you need to do is push them in. I'm pushing them in about sort of 1.5 to 2 inches into the compost. The compost is reasonably loose, and then as you water it, the compost will kind of collapse into the tub, leaving the seed probably about 1 inch deep. That's sort of ideally where you want it. So this compost is not, so as well you can tell by the way I'm pushing my hand into it, it's not sort of too compacted. As I say, put 2 seeds in, try and get the seed about 1 inch or so apart, and then roughly in the middle of the pot. And then, as I say, after they've grown, what I'll do is I'll wait to see which one's the strongest one, and then as soon as they get to kind of 3 or 4 inches high, cut out the weaker one of the 2, and then that'll be the one I'll keep. Now, as you're putting the seed in, what you want to do, if you kept your own seed, what you want to do is feel the seed. You should feel a kernel inside the seed. In other words, the seed's got some sort of some width to it. That tells you there's a kernel inside, i.e. the bit that grows. If you find a seed that when you squeeze it, it feels flat, so it's only like that one there, for example. Now if I open that up, I don't know if you can see, but there's no kernel inside, so that seed won't grow, so obviously discard that. So every time I'm picking one up, I'm feeling how wide the seed is. If I can feel a kernel inside the seed, I know that's going to grow. That's obviously the bit that grows. Right, so I'm just finishing off these last 2 here, just slightly off screen. Now as soon as you've got them all in, I'm going to just do these. As soon as you've got them all in, all you need to do is basically give them a bit of water and sort of start them off. You don't need to keep them too warm. These will germinate at reasonably low temperatures. So those are the seeds I've got left over. Now, I always save my sunflower seeds every year, but sunflower seeds will last for 2 or 3 years. So if you've got some seeds that you've kept a few years ago, they will still grow. Right. So all I'm going to do, just very quickly, is get some more of the pots, and then just go along and just sort of push it in. The only reason I'm doing this, I could literally just water them, but the reason I'm doing this is so that when I do water them, the compost doesn't go sort of wash out all over the place. So I'm just gently pushing them down like that, which will make sure that the compost is in contact with the seed, which keeps the seed moist, which then means the you know, it'll germinate properly. As I say, give them a bit of water and they'll grow very quickly on, and I'll show you these in a few weeks' time as soon as they started to grow. Okay, so what we basically need to be doing this time of year is putting the potatoes out to chit. Now these are some potatoes that we grew last year, but unfortunately they were too kind of small to sort of bother peeling and sort of eating. So what I always do is save the potatoes that are too small to eat, and you know, anything kind of that size, so the size of a golf ball or possibly slightly smaller. The one thing you need to understand with the potato is basically the part that grows are the actual chits themselves, so these little sort of plantlets coming out. So what you'll see is there's ones that's slightly more developed. So you get the little chits forming on the side of the potato there, and then you start to get the roots forming from the chits. So it's not the potato that grows, it's actually the chits that grow. So you could potentially remove that chit from the potato and just plant the chit, and that will grow as a plant. The potato itself, like the seed potato, obviously provides sort of nutrition to it as it's growing, but you know, there's no reason why you can't sort of remove that chit from the potato and then just plant that. Most certainly in the war, for example, when there was a shortage of food, people used to cut the chits off with a bit of the sort of side of the potato, eat the potato, and then just basically plant the potato peelings, if you like, with the chits on. But basically what we need to do this time of year is, these are quite delicate and they will sort of separate from the potato, so what you need to do is sort them out onto egg trays. Now the egg trays that I use, I've had these for years, and basically they're just the standard cardboard sort of egg trays that you can get from most places really. If you haven't got any of these, just standard egg boxes will do, or failing that you can just prop them up into a standard sort of potting sort of planting tray like that, and just sort of stand them upright like that in the corner. Obviously as soon as you put a few in, they'll sort of support each other up, but the best way of doing it is with egg trays. So what you do basically is get the egg tray. What you want to do is get your potato and basically place it so that the chits are facing uppermost, like that. Now when you're actually planting potatoes, the number of chits that are on the potatoes will most certainly determine what sort of potatoes you get. Now all of these that I've got here, these are all kestrel. Obviously the variety is the same, but if you've got a potato with one chit on it, what you're going to get is fewer larger potatoes. If you've got a potato with multiple sort of chits on, like some of these I've got here, where you've got sort of 2 or possibly 3 chits, you will get a lot more potatoes, but on average the potato will be smaller. Last year was a bad year for potatoes, so all of these potatoes I've got here, sort of quite, or not particularly these potatoes I've got here. The potatoes I've dug up last year were all particularly small. Kestrel's a second early variety, so the potatoes you get are kind of sort of on average about that big, and then they sort of get to kind of sort of this big, if you like, so something, I don't know, sort of 6 inches across. These last year were because of the year that we had, the potatoes didn't come out very well, but anyway, looking forwards, hopefully we're going to get a much better year this year. So what you need to be doing is place them in the tray as I'm doing here, with the chits facing up. Don't worry which way they point at the moment, they'll all sort of work the right way up. And what you need to do is put these into the light. Nowhere too bright, you don't want them in direct sunlight, but what you want them is in some light, because you want the chits to grow up. Also the light will make the chits sort of harden off a little bit, so you don't want them in the dark because they'll get quite pale, sort of like some of these that I've got coming up now. These have been in the dark up until now. And you'll find that you get sort of chits like that which are quite large, but they're not particularly strong. So you're much better off getting them in, sort of in the light. In a shed or a garage is ideal. Obviously you want it to be frost free. Now we'll be planting these potatoes out in the next kind of couple of months. So what you want to be doing is putting them in a tray like this, leaving them in here for a few weeks or a month or so for the chits to develop, and then you can be planting them out. Obviously when you plant them out, what you want to be doing is taking off any chits that you don't need. So if you've got a potato which has got multiple chits on, like this for example, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 at the top there, and then I've also got 1 at the bottom here. What I would do is I would knock a couple of those chits off, so I've just got 3 left as I'm putting it into the ground. You can do it now as they're in the trays if you wish, but what I tend to do, see that one there, it's got 2 there, it's got 1 here and 1 there, so basically I'll probably take them 2 off, leaving them 2 on, and then plant that into the ground like that. Now, as soon as you've got them in the tray like that, as I say, you want to put it into shed. A greenhouse is perfectly good, you know, just as long as the sun isn't too bright. What you want to do is avoid them getting sort of dehydrated. So if you've got them in the shed, you just need enough light to get them to realise which way is up. The one thing I would suggest is if you find any potatoes with any disease on or anything that you're not quite sure about, for example this one here has got some bits missing out of it, I would discard that. That one there's got a little lump on it missing out of it there. That should be okay, but I would potentially avoid using that. As I've got plenty of them, you know, I'm not too sort of worried about them. And ideally what you want is the potato to be, as I say, about the size of a golf ball, something like that is ideal. Don't forget, it's not the potato that grows, it's the chits that grow, so the size of the potato is largely irrelevant. You know, what you want are good healthy chits on the potato. As soon as it's in the ground, the goodness will start to become from the soil, so you know the actual size of the potato is not so important really. And you want, I would say on average in a hole, dig the hole about sort of a foot deep, and then plant the potato in the bottom of the hole, and you want 3 chits in there. If you've got potatoes with only 1 chit on, by all means put 2 potatoes in the same hole with the chits facing up. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. But as I say, if you get any potatoes like this has got a bit of damage on it there, I would discard that one. So there's a few there that I've discarded now. But a potato as small as that, you know, as long as there's a couple of chits on it, that will grow away and you know, sort of form a nice plant. What you ideally want to do is get a potato that's kind of that size, you know, the size of a golf ball. Obviously these are quite well developed. So as soon as you've got them out into the tray, as I say, what you want to do is put them into a reasonably light place. A garden shed is ideal, or a garage. As I say, the greenhouse is okay as long as it doesn't get too bright and hot. What you don't want to do is cook them and sort of get them overly stressed. And then as soon as the weather is good enough, obviously you can plant them out. Now, with potatoes, what you want to do is gauge it so that when the potatoes sort of grow out of the ground, so the tops of the you know, the leaves grow out of the ground, there's no more frost. If there's any frost, these leaves will get damaged, and even though the plant will sort of grow back again, it never fully recovers from that. So what you want to do is plant them so that you know, basically the tops of the plants never get exposed to frost. Now in the UK, frosts kind of come up until, you can't guarantee we won't get a frost till sort of May. The month of May is finished really. So what I suggest you do with most certainly second earlies like this and main crop, you don't really want to be planting them out into the ground until I'd say the beginning of May at the earliest. Don't be tempted to put them in the ground sort of too early, because what you can get is obviously the tops coming out, you need to hoe them up. If they pop out and you get a bit of frost, then you know, the tops can get damaged. As I say, the plant won't recover from that. If the tops do come up and there is some danger of frost, obviously hoe them up. So basically what you do is you sort of bury the leaves in the ground. That won't do the plant any harm at all. If anything, that'll actually produce more potatoes. And keep them hoed up and don't let them be exposed, you know, to the air. Most certainly until, you know, the end of May, when you can guarantee that there's no frost coming, and then just leave them to grow away. The season of a potato, it doesn't matter what time of the year you know, you sort of plant them. They're all kind of, you know, sort of 12 to 16 weeks, and then the plant will flower and start to die back. The potatoes at that point won't get any bigger, so there's, you know, it's a reasonably short growing period compared to other you know, so other plants, so there's no real rush to get them in the ground. And obviously if you put them in too early, you could potentially get damage through frost. So what I suggest you do, as I say, you won't be putting these out until May, but get them in trays now, because you don't want these chits to be sort of damaged. Keep them in a reasonably sort of dry environment with a bit of light, and these will sort of chit away quite happily. Then you can get them in the ground in the coming weeks. Okay, so there you can see the potatoes. Obviously in each of the trays I've got 30 potatoes. Now I typically put in a 26 foot wide row, I typically put 15 potatoes. So I find, obviously leaving a gap at each end, I typically put 15 potatoes in. So they're going in at about sort of 14 inches apart or so, or sort of 36 centimetres if you like. So those are all the potatoes. Obviously some of these are quite a bit bigger than what I'd normally put in, but they'll do perfectly good. But obviously the main thing to remember is what you're planting are the chits, not the potatoes. So as I say, if you've only got one chit on a potato, like for example this one here has only got one on, there's no reason why I can't put two potatoes in the same hole with both chits facing up. They'll grow away in exactly the same way as you would if you put a potato in there with two chits on. It's exactly the same thing. So those are the potatoes ready. As I say, they'll go in a couple of months' time. So I hope this episode was of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you got below, and I'll always get back to you. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's on the Garden.